Has Mark Carney failed Canada? Housing prices are through the roof, wages are collapsing, and jobs are disappearing. The Canadian dream is slipping away, and many are asking, is this the result of failed leadership? Stay tuned, because what you'll hear today will shock you. If you appreciate the work we do in exposing the truth, you can support this channel and buy us a coffee here. buymeacoffee.com. True North Canada first. Every small support helps us keep going. Link is in the description. Chapter 1. Housing prices out of control. The Canadian housing market has spiraled into uncharted territory. In 2025, the national benchmark sits at more than 719,000. A decade earlier, it was under 400,000. That doubling has left Canadian families struggling to keep up because wages have not grown at anything close to the same pace. Toronto illustrates this crisis in stark detail. The average detached home is now selling for over $1.25 million, while even the most modest condos average $720,000. Renting offers little relief. The average one-bedroom apartment in the city costs between $2,550 and $2,700 per month. In Vancouver, the situation is even worse. Detached homes approach $1.45 million, while renters pay nearly $2,800 per month for a single-bedroom unit. International affordability rankings place Vancouver as the third least affordable housing market on Earth, behind only Hong Kong and Sydney. But the pain is no longer confined to the largest metros. In Brampton, semi-detached homes fetch over $900,000, while Mississauga's condos are closing in on $730,000. In Surrey, homes that once cost $500,000 now hover around $1.1 million. Even Halifax, once considered a haven of affordability, has seen prices surge nearly 40% in just 5 years. Renters find themselves trapped in basements and overcrowded apartments. In Mississauga and Brampton, it is common to see 2 or 3 families sharing one dwelling. Illegal rooming houses multiply. Municipal inspectors warn that safety risks rise as landlords carve up homes to meet desperate demand. The numbers reveal a generational chasm. In the 1990s, a typical home was just 3 or 4 times the average income. Today, that ratio has ballooned to 12 or 15 times. Millennials and Gen Z no longer talk about delayed ownership. They talk about permanent exclusion. A 2025 survey found that 7 in 10 Canadians under 35 believe they will never own a home. Immigration inflows of 1.2 million newcomers in 2024 alone collide with a construction industry that produces fewer than 240,000 new units per year. Experts warn that to stabilize the market, Canada must build 3.5 million new homes by 2030. Without that, demand will continue to crush supply, driving prices further upward. And behind those numbers lies a human story. Families pushed further from cities, commuting 2 or 3 hours each day. Parents working multiple jobs, yet unable to leave rentals. Young couples abandoning dreams of raising families altogether. Housing, once the symbol of Canadian security, has become the greatest source of national anxiety. Chapter 2. The vanishing paycheque, 80 pounds 160 hundreds. As housing costs soar, the Canadian paycheque has withered. The median income in 2024 was $66,600, but inflation has eaten away its power. Food prices have risen by more than 20% since 2021, and staples such as bread, eggs and meat climb year after year. A family that once spent $150 on groceries now pays closer to $250. Gasoline spikes, electricity bills climb, and childcare costs reach levels once unimaginable. For families in Toronto or Vancouver, childcare can cost $1,600, $1,800 per month. Every bill shrinks what little is left of stagnant wages. The job market paints an equally sobering picture. Ontario has shed 15% of its manufacturing jobs since 2015. High-paying industrial positions in auto and steel plants have been replaced by precarious service roles. In 2024 and 2025, waves of layoffs swept through Toronto's and Vancouver's tech sectors, cutting into what was once the last refuge of stable, high-income employment. For many Canadians, the gig economy has become the default. Nearly 20% of workers now rely on platforms like Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, or Instacart. Gig work provides flexibility but strips away security. The average gig worker makes between $1,500 and $2,000 per month, far below the level needed to cover housing costs. These workers receive no benefits, no pensions, and no guarantee of hours. The regional stories are painful. In Brampton, truckers drive 14-hour days for stagnant wages, struggling to afford rising rents. In Mississauga, families depend on low-paying jobs tied to Pearson Airport. What once supported a middle-class lifestyle now barely pays for groceries. In Toronto, engineers, nurses and teachers confess that their salaries cannot keep up with the cost of shelter. And in Surrey, construction workers complain of wage suppression and unsafe working conditions as employers seek to cut costs. The result is the collapse of the Canadian middle class. Families who believed hard work guaranteed stability now live paycheck to paycheck. Polls show that 60% of Canadians report feeling financially worse off than their parents. The Canadian dream of upward mobility is faltering before their eyes. If you want us to keep digging into these issues and exposing the truth, please consider buying us a coffee here. buymeacoffee.com. True North Canada first. Your support keeps this channel alive and independent. Chapter 3. Population pressure. Canada's population growth has become the fastest in the G7. In 2024, the country welcomed 1.2 million newcomers, pushing the total population beyond 42 million. Among them were nearly 1 million international students, with hundreds of thousands more arriving as temporary workers. In theory, growth fuels innovation and strengthens economies. In practice, Canada's infrastructure has failed to keep pace. Toronto's subways and buses are routinely overcrowded, with rush-hour passengers crammed shoulder to shoulder. In Brampton, schools run at 120% capacity, relying on portable classrooms scattered across playgrounds. Garbage pickup falls behind as neighborhoods swell. Mississauga struggles with multiple families crammed into single homes, while Surrey sees hospital wait times stretch longer than ever. The result is visible frustration. Newcomers struggle to find housing, while locals feel squeezed out of the market. Employers exploit cheap labor, depressing wages for everyone. Language programs and integration services are stretched thin. The story is not about blaming individuals, it is about planning failures. Immigration targets were raised to record highs without matching investments in housing, healthcare, or transit. Canada's promise of multicultural integration has been overshadowed by the reality of underfunded systems and rising tensions. Chapter 4. The Carney Question. At the center of this crisis looms the figure of Mark Carney. Appointed governor of the Bank of Canada in 2008, Carney steered the country through the global financial crash. Internationally, he was praised as a savior. Interest rates were kept low to encourage stability, and the world took notice. Carney became the rock star banker, celebrated in London and Davos. But at home, the story was more complex. Those historically low rates fueled borrowing frenzies. By 2013, household debt had ballooned to 170% of income. Housing markets in Toronto and Vancouver doubled in price. Canadians piled on debt, while investors thrived. Carney left Canada to lead the Bank of England through Brexit. Again, he was applauded internationally, but Canadians at home saw affordability deteriorate further. When Carney returned, it was not just as a banker, but as a political figure. By 2025, he is seen as a potential Liberal leader, perhaps even a Prime Minister. Yet the criticisms follow him. Did his policies protect markets at the expense of households? Did his pursuit of global prestige come at the cost of Canadian affordability? For many, Mark Carney symbolizes the growing gap between elites and ordinary citizens. Chapter 5. What's left for Canadians? The cracks are now impossible to ignore. Parents in Mississauga admit they cannot help their children into the housing market. Young couples in Toronto abandon the idea of having children, knowing they cannot afford a home. Middle-aged Canadians in Surrey rent basements after decades of work. In Brampton, families crowd 3 generations under one roof, not out of tradition, but out of necessity. Canada once promised clean streets, affordable homes, and upward mobility. Now it is described by many as crowded, unaffordable, and unstable. Experts warn that to restore balance, Canada must build 3.5 million homes by 2030, tie immigration levels to infrastructure growth, and adopt policies that boost wages in line with productivity. Without those measures, the decline will accelerate. Polls reveal deep anxiety. More than half of Canadians believe their children will be worse off than they are. The Canadian dream, a home, a stable job, and a better future for the next generation, is fading from reach. The identity of the country itself is at stake. Will Canada remain the land of opportunity, or will it become a cautionary tale of political mismanagement and economic inequality? Canada is at a breaking point. Housing out of reach, wages collapsing, jobs disappearing, and a leadership class that seems more interested in global applause than Canadian lives. Has Mark Carney failed us? Or is there still time to fix this country before it's too late? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you value our work and want to help us keep exposing these truths, please consider buying us a coffee. buymeacoffee.com. True North Canada first. Every single one goes back into making more content like this. Link is in the description. And don't forget to like, share and subscribe so more Canadians hear the truth.